Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app, bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecast, radar, and Indiana sports, all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere. Now, from your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Central Indiana begins a long recovery from historic flooding. Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist, in for Phil Sanchez. The leader of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security tells me it will take a few days before the federal government can decide whether Indiana will receive a major disaster declaration. State aid is already available. We also discussed how to handle insurance disputes and how the state addressed the call backlog at Indiana 211. As Indiana shifts to the recovery phase, what are some of the top challenges we face?
Right now, we're really focused on finishing the power restoration in the northwest part of the state. I expect that and hope that to be finished by this weekend. That's what we're hearing. And then the recovery for the flood victims is going to be a much longer project. We know that. They'll start with insurance if they have insurance. And if they don't, then that's where our community comes in and rallies behind them with faith-based organizations, volunteer organizations, state assistance, hopefully federal assistance. But really, we want to focus on cleaning those homes out that have been flooded. We've got to get stuff out, get it sorted so that it can be taken away. And then we want to get those homes cleaned up so we can get families back in as quickly as possible.
How does the FEMA major disaster application process work?
Well, we're not at a point today where individuals can receive FEMA disaster assistance. We hope that that comes in the next couple of days or weeks. We are putting our package together to present to FEMA and to President Trump. I expect that to be filed with FEMA sometime today or tomorrow. And then it will take some time before we get that decision back. If and when those funds become available, FEMA and the state and local will be very strong with our media push to make sure residents know exactly how to apply, where they can apply, how much assistance they may be available for. But at this point, that's not available to individual homeowners. I expect a decision on that soon. And again, once that decision happens, we will push that very hard so that people know exactly where and when they can go apply for assistance.
Now, in the meantime, what state resources are available? I know, for example, the state has started providing grants through the State Disaster Assistance Fund.
Yeah, this was stood up just a couple of days ago by Governor Braun and this administration and this legislature. They identified funding that could be used for really immediate needs for residents. So that's grants of up to $5,000 through the State Disaster Relief Fund. Individuals can apply either by going to 211 online, they can call 211, or they can go directly to the State Disaster Relief Fund application, which is also available online at our website, in.gov/DHS. There is a resource hub that's linked to our homepage where residents can find out about other resources, Red Cross shelters, food assistance, housing assistance, but also that State Disaster Relief Fund grant that may be available to individuals to get back on their feet.
What should homeowners do to apply for that state relief and for federal relief if and when we get it?
Sure. Homeowners right now should be really focused on doing what they need to do to get their home back in a habitable condition. So cleaning things out, taking things out that have been flooded, get those out of your home, and contact your local emergency management officials through social media. There are so many people that are willing to help in these communities. And so we don't want you to feel like you're in this alone. We know that there are organizations that have they have labor, they have cleaning supplies, they have, in some cases, financial resources. So please figure out what is available in your local community. Start to recover as quickly as you can. But the big thing for residents right now to be reimbursed potentially later is document as much as you can. Take those photos, keep receipts. If you have to replace something or repair something, make sure that you have a receipt for what you've paid to a vendor or a store or wherever that may be, so that you could potentially be eligible for reimbursement in the future.
We've heard from homeowners who say they've been having trouble getting their insurance agents to honor their flood commitments. What should homeowners do if they have trouble with their insurers?
Stay on them. Contact them early. If you've had damage, you should be contacting them right now. Make sure that they have an adjuster come out and take a look at the damage. But our Department of Insurance here in Indiana is fully engaged as well. We're planning on setting up one-stop shops around the state in different communities here in the next week or two. What that'll do is that'll bring all the relevant state agencies, local agencies, and volunteer organizations into one spot so that residents have a single place that they can go to get answers to some of these questions. How do I get my insurance company to listen? Where can I find assistance for this or that? And so we'll be pushing that real hard once we have those locations identified and the hours of operation. But right now, I would say contact your insurance company early. And if you're having issues, then reach out to the Department of Insurance, who does have some resources available to help you get that assistance that you deserve if you have a policy.
Early on, some flood survivors told us they encountered wait times as long as an hour when they called Indiana 211. I understand you brought in some additional staff. What are you going to do to prevent that going forward?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we had record numbers of calls to 211, and I can't thank them enough and their team for the communication back and forth to let us know when those calls started to surge so that we could identify additional resources. But as I mentioned earlier, Governor Braun said, all hands on deck. Every state agency jump in to help. We have folks from other call centers that are coming over to help 211. So those call times are down, and they are very reasonable. And we are starting to see all that data coming in. But you're talking about going from 500 calls a day up to, I think in some cases, nearly 3,000 calls a day for this call center at 211. We knew it would be a lot of individuals that were calling in, needing assistance, reporting damage, which we appreciate. And as those calls escalated, we found the additional resources to make sure that they were handled as quickly as possible.
Why was Indiana Task Force 1 not activated?
Yeah, when mission requests come into the State Emergency Operations Center, we try to identify the most appropriate resource at that time and make sure that we're not neglecting other parts of the state. And so I will say that parts of the Task Force 1 team were deployed. They were just maybe deployed as a smaller team. So maybe that was a rescue team, a boat rescue team, a swiftwater rescue team, an incident management team. A lot of the members of Task Force 1 have been fully engaged on this disaster since the moment it started. But what we were trying to do was allocate those resources appropriately. Instead of have one team go to one part of the state, we had multiple teams go in really multiple counties all across east central Indiana for the flooding.
What comes next for the state of Indiana?
The recovery process is long and it will take time. Patience is key. We are going to identify every possible resource for Hoosiers at the local, state, and federal level. We want people to be as close to whole, as close to life before this event as possible. And so please just continue to help your neighbors, help your families that are impacted by this event, and be patient with each other. Be kind. It is a very stressful time for so many people across this state. And we've got to be kind to each other and jump in to help when you can. Maybe that's financial assistance, maybe that's supplies, maybe that's labor. But this is a true statewide effort with all of us involved. And the quicker we bounce back and get people back into their homes and back to their lives, the quicker we can move forward better than before.
Jonathan Witter is the executive director of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. That is the parent agency of Indiana's emergency management system. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Garrett.
Coming up, Indiana's largest city halts new data center developments. We'll tell you for how long and how city leaders plan to use that time. Welcome back. Indianapolis has put a pause on data centers. The Metropolitan Development Commission unanimously approved a data center moratorium supported by the City County Council and Mayor Joe Hogsett. Tim Spears explains.
This moratorium means Indianapolis has put a pause on all new data center developments through the end of 2027. Applause from the audience after the 6-0 vote approving a data center moratorium.
I feel a lot right now. Feel a sense of relief. This is 18 months in the making, but we also realize that this is essentially halftime. There's a lot of work to be done as far as getting good guardrails around these data center projects.
The moratorium is part of a new zoning ordinance setting minimum standards for future data center developments, but the moratorium is meant to give the city time to consider stronger regulations. The City County Council has appropriated money for an outside study on potential regulations.
We're looking at quite extensive regulations, and we're going to do a nationwide survey of what's out there already, talk to other experts.
City County Council member Michael Paul Hart asked the Metropolitan Development Commission to vote against it.
And effectively, what this is doing is putting a pause on it until there's a new city council in place. And so what you're going to run into, or what the city will run into in 2028, there will be a fresh batch of some counselors, and they're not going to be as educated as the counselors that we have now, but we're going to have...
Hart was the lone council vote opposed to the moratorium, saying this could cause Indianapolis to miss out on projects.
Just by saying no to everything is not a responsible thing to do. I think if we have a set of development standards in place, if we want to go more restrictive, we always can.
One vocal opponent,
cease and desist,
Sir,
said the moratorium doesn't go far enough because it still grandfathers 3 projects in development.
Yeah, they make plenty of money, but at the expense of people's lives? No, the people's lives are more important than the businessman making money.
There's been so much opposition to these data centers. Do you even think a year and a half and maybe some added regulations are going to address these kind of emotions over these developments?
time will tell. Our intent is to come to a rational, reasonable compromise, if you will, that protects the people but also protects the economic interests.
Projects already in development are still moving forward. The Saby Data Center and the Metroblocks Data Center both will have tax abatements being considered by the Metropolitan Development Commission on September 16th. Reporting downtown, Tim Spears, Indiana's I-Team.
Coming up, Indiana's best political team assesses the state's disaster response so far and how soon we might get answers on the aid question.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Carly Macer and Republican Matt Bell. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you, sir.
Great to be here.
So let's begin with those floods here in central Indiana, as well as the storms that we saw in northwest Indiana. How would you rate the Braun administration's response and handling of those storms, as well as that of local governments? Carly, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I'll say, like, goodness sakes, I mean, we have been in an extraordinary times, an emergency, and I think overall the state's done a pretty good job. And I think we're just in the beginning phases of it, but I would say as what we've been dealing with overall, the state has done a great job of declaring the disaster, number one, the National Guard, having all the state agencies, the frontline emergency folks on the line. I think that the state is really doing a good job. It is really going to be about how the state is doing in the next weeks and months ahead. I think that will really be the conversation. But right now, I think they've done the best that they could in such a serious disaster.
Matt, how about you?
Well, obviously, I think all of our hearts first go out to families impacted all across East Central Indiana, Central Indiana, and Northwest Indiana, and communities that are devastated. I believe that the governor deserves exemplary remarks for the leadership that he's demonstrated this week. I think the governor has coordinated so many elements of state government to ensure that there's a coordinated response. I think the collaboration with local governments and the work that mayors and county officials have done right alongside folks from the National Guard, from DHS, from the Department of Correction, from DNR, all working toward one goal. I mean, heard Mr. Woodard, and what a wonderful job of leadership we've seen, how lucky Indiana is to have a commissioner like that in place leading this effort. I salute the job that our first responders state has done in response, and join Carly in admonishing all of us to remember this is a long road ahead.
So we're waiting for FEMA to approve a major disaster declaration, and that would allow affected homeowners to access federal disaster aid. Matt, what are some things we need to watch for as that goes through?
So I think first we can be very thankful that Governor Braun has worked to establish a great working relationship with the Trump administration so that in emergency moments like this, we can move to the top of the line. I think that the administration is laser focused on getting that declaration from the feds. I think they are eager to put funding into the hands of Hoosiers who've been impacted. You heard that through the one-stop shops that we're attempting to set up. I think the faster that can happen and the administration has the foot on the throttle, the better it'll be for Hoosier communities.
Carly, what sort of oversight role will the state need to play in the weeks and months ahead on this aid spending, both its own and also potentially the federal spending?
Yeah, well, I definitely think for us, it's really all going to come down to, do people know the resources? Do family know the resources are available to them? How to get them? How we're responding? How we are truly helping as the weeks and months ahead is really going to it's going to be so important for the state to oversee and to help make sure that the families who are in these disasters, the emergency may be ending, but the disaster for them is still there and will be there for many months ahead. So I think just making sure that families know that we as a government are not going to be able to rest until everyone's back in their home, infrastructure is in place, and communities are okay and ready to move forward.
Well, the floods, obviously, and the storms in Northwest Indiana, obviously the big story over the past week plus, but there were some big public policy stories as well. Chief among them, that data center moratorium in Indianapolis, now through the end of 2027. It does not affect data centers that are already being constructed. Carly, was an outright moratorium the right move?
Well, I think it is. It seems to be a responsible move. I think that development is good, but good development needs to really make sure that we have the rules in place for developers, but also for communities, and what's good for communities too. So I think it is reasonable. I think it's reasonable to take a step back 18 months and take a look at the playbook for everyone. And I just feel like for the community overall, it makes sense for us to take a step back and make sure that we are not pushing jobs and technology away as we move forward, but maybe just coming back to the table to make sure that everybody knows the playbook, and most importantly, the developers, let alone the communities and what it brings to our communities as well.
Matt, city county councilors told us they want to take that time to develop new data center regulations. What do you think are the biggest issues they'll need to consider?
I think there needs to be a tremendous amount of public education around data centers. We are caught in a frenzy of misinformation right now that data centers may be responsible for everything from high energy prices to water loss to kids being born with 3 heads. And the rhetoric is wild and all over the board. I think that sober public officials need to help the public understand the value case for data centers in their community. I believe we could have done it effectively without a moratorium. I think that was the wrong way to approach it. But I think that we have an opportunity. Frankly, developers have an equal opportunity. It is stunning to me that the same technology companies who've made algorithms that have made us so dependent on our phones have not been able to help us move public opinion to host these really important investments. We all love being on our devices. That data has to live somewhere. We need to find a way to have a better conversation about it, and I hope that we can advance that timeline and have it more quickly than over the next 18 months.
Yeah, and I think we can have both.
All right, well, thank you both for coming in, and we will be right back.
Thanks.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.